So, I'm not sure what I'm going to do today, but I know this. The left front tire leaking air just from sitting here. Maybe one of the weights is putting it out. Maybe it's just because the rim itself was pitted. I don't know. But we're going to pull the left front wheel off it. We have to do the left front wheel bearing and brake there too, so we're going to adjust that. We're going to pull the bearing apart. We're going to pack it with grease. We're going to put the whole thing back together. Should be good to go. Fix the leaking tire. Yada, yada, yada. Might even move it on this side so I can hit it with some air every once in a while. C'est la vie. And then we'll move onward from there. On to the next step. Into the future. Behind us the past. And to second that, as much as I like putting these videos out, the bummer is that I usually, when I'm working on the car, is I'm listening to music coming through the iPhone, through the Bluetooth Bose speaker. And when I'm doing this, I can't really listen to music. So I'm going to kill this, put some music back on. I'll come back to it once I got the left front wheel apart. All right, so we're taking off Mr. Tire because it's got a leak, but also because we need to get in here, repack the wheel bearings, because I'm not entirely sure if Dad did it because he didn't do it on the other side. We need to suspect this as well. Also, we're going to adjust the front brakes on this side. We did that side last week and came out pretty good. We're going to do this side. We're going to switch this tire from here to the other side just so we're sure we have a tire that's not leaking. At least on that side I can get to it. If it starts to run a little low on air, it's good to go. This side generally up against the wall when the other car's in here, so can't do that. So here we go. You little bastard. Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, as you can see here, we have a wheel spacer on here. There's a reason for that. The reason is Uncle John donated us a set of 4 Steelies off of his old Malibu. But because of the offset with these drums on it, we're running into the top of the ball joint. So on the other side, we made a couple slight modifications to the ball joint. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Eventually, we're going to replace the control arms, but for right now, we just want to roll the car around a little bit. In the garage, out of the garage, around the block. Get this thing tied together and make sure we can get the kinks out of it before we do anything significant and actually take it out on a real road. So, 1 spacer. We're going to lose this today. We're going to modify the ball joint. We're also going to go into here. We're going to pull this drum off. We're going to pull this hub apart. Wheel bearings, we're going to repack those. We're going to adjust the drum brakes so that they operate properly. Anybody that's saying that drum brakes suck, they're partially right. They made a gazillion cars with drum brakes in them and they work perfectly fine from the day they rolled off the showroom. Not to say they don't need attention, they do. And not to say you can drive around like a freaking Mario Andretti, like willy-nilly, and expect them to be there for you. They won't. But if you just drive the car, they work fine. So we're going to pull this apart, move forward from there. And so because my knees are old, we use the magic carpet. Now, first thing we're going to do is pull the cotter pin out, back off the retaining nut, pull the washer off the back, pull the drum off. Pretty simple. These cars basically back in the day were made to be idiot proof. And here we go. We're going to test that theory. Channel locks are your friend. One nut, 1 washer, quick wipe of the hands,
I can see falling stars under a deep blue sky.
1 wheel bearing, not greased. That's okay, Dad. Still love you. We're just making sure. Aww. Also, just as a quick view, I don't know if I'm showing this properly here, but the inside of these drums are not too bad, but they've been sitting forever. So we're going to go through them, just kind of clean them up with a little, sandpaper, emery cloth, and then whatever ridge is on here, we're going to grind down a little bit with a die grinder, Mr. Angle grinder, and then we'll put it back together adjusted, and that will be that. first thing I think we should do is get little Mr. Brushy. Give him a little brush down of all the old cobwebs and everything else that are in there. And then we'll start going for it. Now I'm going to bring in close so you can take a look. It's been here a while. Got some cobwebs in there and a whole bunch of surface rust. I don't know if that wheel cylinder is leaking or if it's just from sitting there for so long. I don't see a lot of mess there. I do see an inner wheel bearing that is not very well greased, and grease on there that's not even there. I'm sorry. It's still in the other half of there. Where'd we go? There we are. So that's the race, but a little old grease in there. It's just all worn out. We're going to clean that up. We're going to grease the snot out of it, put this thing back together, adjust it properly, and we will move onward. All right, so go over it a little bit. Just knock the surface crud off of it, really. It's pretty clean. You know, I mean, this is really just for aesthetics. Just want to make sure that there's nothing on there that doesn't need to be there. We're going to hit it with the brake clean in a few moments, but I just wanted to see this. I've got Mr. Star Adjuster here. And for those of you that know drum brakes, or any kind of brakes rather, but especially drums, these star adjusters on here, on most modern cars, there is a self-adjuster built into it. Not so on Mr. 55 Chevy. These things, you got to adjust them yourself. And that is the key to these brakes. Aside the fact that also you can't really stop from a zillion miles an hour with them. But if you drive like a human being and you keep these things adjusted properly, they'll stop pretty darn good. But anyway, onward. You can get right down on into there, right here. Mr. Star Adjuster. You got to turn him out, because what happens is you turn him, he pushes these guys out. These brake shoes head outward like this. Basically what you're trying to get them to do is just barely touch the inside of the drum. And if they just barely touch the inside of the drum, as you operate them while you're driving around in real life, the car will stop properly. And that's what we're looking for. Stopping properly. I took the liberty of making a couple adjustments on this before I turned the camera back on, so. 1, 2, see what that gets us. Oh, we're still pretty far out. I've got, counting what I did off camera, I've got probably 5 turns on this, so way out of adjustment, and that would explain why we had virtually no brakes. Even when bled properly. Oh, still not quite there. Good Lord. Good Lord. Another 3. Let's see what that gets us. Getting there, a little snug. Get her. Man, excuse me. Let it from camera. Oh, great. Okay. Here we go. Now I'm a little tight. I'm going to back this off just a wee, and that should be good. That, ladies and gentlemen, are how they're supposed to be set up. Get them on there, they're supposed to just touch ever so slightly. Still be able to turn them freely, but just barely touching. And then they work. So we're going to put it back together. I'm going to do the bearings, clean this up a little bit, and then maybe we'll fix the tire today. We'll see what's leaking on it. We'll clean this madness up a little bit. I mean, the grease is only 50 years old. You know, not that I'm looking to scratch anything. I just Want to get the bulk of it out of there. It's pretty nasty. Lord only knows what kind of dangerous shit this can do to you.
Under a deep blue sky.
Yeesh. There we go. And that, I'm just going to touch it up a little bit with the wire brush. And for you guys that are going to tell me, no, no, don't use a wire brush, it's brass. Doobie-doobie-doo. Doobie-doobie. Doobie-doobie-doo. Doobie-doobie. Doobie-doobie-doo. Doobie-doobie-doo. All right, so here we go. Grease is the word. We're gonna put a light film on everything, and we're gonna slowly put it back together, and then we'll fix that leaking tire. White film on everything. You know, you're not trying to save the world, but this is the type of housing that needs grease. And, you know, you don't want it on the brake linings, obviously, but, you know, can't be too shy about it being in here, because this is where Mr. Bearing lives. And Mr. Bearing likes grease. There we go. Okay, we got to, see, we're not going to pull the seal out because you got to pull the seal out to get the bearing out. So we're not going to do that. We're going to load the snot out of it with grease, we're going to spin it around, we're going to make sure that we have enough on it, and then we're going to put it back together. The idea of this phase is to get it to the point where I can drive around the block safely. Meaning it'll stop at a stop sign, it'll go when I tell it to, it'll turn when I need it to, and that's pretty much it. You know, we're gonna look for things like overheating and things like that, and you know, when she acts up, we'll be a block or two away, and we'll bring it back, we'll figure it out. And we're gonna do that until we're confident that we can drive her up, you know, more desirable distance. Okay, that is enough grease in there. Remember, we're going to use it, but only till we have to. Because we want to put 2 new control arms in the front with multiple adjustments, and we want to do front disc brakes. This thing will stop so well with front disc brakes. You know, most people think these are heavy cars. They are not. They are very light cars. This has always been a very light car, even with the big block in. So, let's put it together. Race, bearing. Yep. What am I doing? I meant to clean this up. So, that's what we're going to do first. We're going to clean up the inside of the drum and clean the shoes a little bit. Just kind of rough them up a little bit. Where is my Scotch pad? Right here. So here we go. This doesn't really do much, but what I'm trying to do is just get the accumulation of crud from it sitting off of the actual shoes itself, so that when they apply as they should. I still have it a little tight, and I'm pretty sure this is going to take enough off of it where it's right where it should be. Now that's it.
Falling stars under a deep blue sky.
Now, you know what? I'm gonna pull it back just another wee of a turn. Okay. Wheel bearings like grease, and grease is your friend. All right. Thankfully, or hopefully, we're done with the grease for now, because that is a fucking bloody mess. We're gonna go through this. We're gonna put the nut back on. We're gonna adjust this properly. There's a way to do that, because you want it tight, but you want it gorilla tight. But it can't be too loose. It's gotta be just right. That's what we're gonna do. Like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. This one was just right. I can't see the hole.
I can see falling stars under a deep blue sky.
All right. There's one there. Okay. All right, we got the hole. And we're going in. Okay. So, what are we doing? We're putting Mr. Cotter Pin back in. Mr. Cotter Pin keeps Mr. Nut from backing his way off while we're out there in the world doing what we're doing. So, Mr. Cotter Pin's going in. And we're going to bend him over so that he doesn't change position either. And then you're good to go. At least in this department. Yep, that's that. That's not going to back off there. All right. Well, what have we learned? We learned that bearings love grease and grease is your friend, or vice versa. Grease is your friend and bearings love grease. Thought for the day. Also, we're going to try and get this back on here without having the Malibu wheel rub the ball joint. So we're going to have to pound this a little bit. I mean, not a lot, just a hair to just get it out of the way. So that's what we're going to do, because I don't want the spacers on it, because the spacers take up too much space and these studs are short to begin with. So basically when I put the Malibu wheels on it, I have no room to tighten the lugs. So that's what we're getting at. So anyway, we're going to do that. I'm going to turn the camera off because it's tedious nonsense. We'll see you later. Okay, what have we learned here? Well, we've got the front brakes adjusted, and that was necessary because they were so far out. The left front, there was no way with all the brake bleeding in the world that these brakes were ever going to operate as far out as that left front wheel was. So thankfully we got that secured. Both front brakes are adjusted properly, and while we were in there, we removed and repacked the wheel bearings with proper grease that wasn't 50 years old. And I think confidently I can say that the front end, at least brakes and front wheel bearing steering wise, this car is prepared to drive around locally in the neighborhood so we can move on to the next step, which is going to be getting the bugs out of it. We put a whole new wiring harness in this, so what we want to do is make sure that everything works properly. We've got a cooling fan system in here that's operated by a temperature sensor and a relay, so we need to make sure that that is working just the way that it should. And also we got a few other doodads we need to do on it. I still have to fill the trans with fluid. We've got to go over it, make sure everything's tight. Our motor mounts, our rear end fasteners, the U-bolts in the back, bell housing bolts, all these kinds of small little peripherals that, you know, aren't really at the forefront of what we do, but are absolutely necessary. So in the coming days, these are the things we're going to do. The next day off, I'm going to bleed the brakes. I'm going to get hopefully a good pedal out of this so I can move it in and out of the garage confidently without worrying about running somebody over. And then we'll move on from there. We're going to get the nose, we're going to wire in the parking lights, the headlights, the signals, all that stuff. And hopefully shortly thereafter, we'll slap a plate on it and drive it around. So stay tuned. We're eager to get this thing on the street. Even if it just falls apart at the end of the block, at least we can drag it back in here, stuff it back in the garage, and move onward from there. At any rate, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode of Live in the 55.